everyone, so third video review for this week is for Accidental Honeymoon by Miranda Macleod. If you want to check out my review, I have just posted that, so if you are on YouTube, there's a link in the description below, and if you're on Facebook or Twitter or my blog, then there is a link within the post. And this is the video review. So Accidental Honeymoon by Miranda Macleod was absolutely fantastic, absolutely brilliant. It's one of those enemies to lovers stories that was just packed with drama, and Monica, she finds herself mixed up in a misunderstanding about Ray, who is the woman hired by her ex to do some work on a house that they were living in, and this misunderstanding leads to Ray being sort of mistaken for Monica's girlfriend. So when the opportunity is presented for both Monica and Ray, it's a hell of an opportunity, and they have little choice but to get married, basically. And the problem is Monica really can't stand Ray, and Ray isn't all that keen on Monica either. And with each complication, sort of they're both frustrated by the hoops that they're going to have to jump through for the sake of their futures. So luckily Ray does feel the same way, and because of that they sort of hatch a plan, because they know this is the right thing to do for both of them, but they don't feel the same in terms of liking each other. They have to hatch this plan, and it kind of forces them to spend that time together, where they end up being closer and working well together and less irritating to one another. And then when it comes down to the crunch, it's Monica who is suddenly having all these second thoughts about whether even this fake wedding is a good idea, and it's not for the reasons she expected it to be. So it's really dramatic, this story. There's so much drama, and this has to be the most amazing and clever enemies to lovers story that I have ever read. What a situation. And I mean, firstly, the main thing is, not only is it drama packed, and I mean drama packed, it's got so much angst and tension between Monica and Ray. Like, it's off the charts tension and intense. It's like, I hate you and I have to spend time with you, and I don't want to, but I'm going to because I sort of want to, but I don't. And it's just like, oh, it's so intense. And you know, Miranda has completely delivered on the believability that these two, they know it's the right thing to do for both of them. They really don't want to do it, but they're going to do it anyway. And she's got that dynamic between them, that I can't stand you, but I can tolerate you for the sake of something bigger, down to a T, like really down to a T. And there literally was not a second that I didn't believe that Monica and Ray were pretending not to like each other. They genuinely didn't, and it was so obvious. They were gonna get on each other's nerves, and you could just tell straight away. And they just clashed, and they just kept on clashing. And even when they were trying to act as if they liked one another, which was so weird, you know, they just kept butting heads. And admittedly, Ray, she was a little sympathetic to Monica's cause, and despite everything, she did selfishly help her, and she really didn't have to. But that is then what made her my favourite character, because although she didn't want to be in this situation, she could kind of see the benefits for herself in being in it, and you just knew she was a good person at heart, because she could not stand this woman, and yet she was making sacrifices that you would only make for someone that you have feelings for. Trust me, you wouldn't make these sacrifices normally unless you knew you were getting something out of it. And the very first one she makes, she has no idea. She just makes it so selflessly, and I think that's lovely, and that's what really made her my favourite character for definite. But I did love Monica. I totally understood her actions, and I totally understood her reasons for being wary of other people. I did. But she was terribly high maintenance, and on the surface it was such fun, really, experiencing how she managed to get herself into this situation, because it was her fault, and it had nothing to do with Ray, really. And at the heart of it, Monica, you just knew she was extremely vulnerable, and she really needed someone like Ray to boost her, because her relationship with her ex had really worn her down, and Ray was just that right person. But what I loved about this, like I say, it had this lovely comedic and humorous element that was created by all the anger between them, the tension, the just misunderstandings, the miscommunication, everything. That created a lot of the comedy element, and gave a lot of the humour. It sort of gave it that really perfect rom-com feeling, and then it was just how relatable the characters were. They really were. They needed one another. So even though you could sort of tell Monica needed Ray the most for the boost, Ray wasn't beyond needing a boost herself, and it just sort of showed how easy it is to misjudge someone, and people behave by they behave in a way that they've been sort of molded into, because past incidents and toxic people or relationships, they create that behavior a lot of the time, and it's easy to misjudge someone before knowing their whole story and the reasons behind why they are how they are. And it's a lesson that both Monica and Ray had to learn. But it was one of those books that, having said that, it was filled with lots of positivity. It was basically saying that you shouldn't judge someone that you don't really know based on their situation, that you should take chances, and that you should try to find the positivity in every situation if you can, even if it's surrounded by negatives. There should be something in there that you can take and turn to a positive or make better. And I loved that. It was just a really interesting sort of concept, and I loved every second of Team Monica and Ray coming together, from being enemies to acquaintances to tolerating one another, we call it that, to becoming this little team who had a big plan. And you could sort of feel it all just bubbling up to the surface, to the loveliness that was going to be, that moment where there was going to be a twist of fate, and they were going to have this happy future that both of them never envisioned, especially not with one another. And it's just a really great story, and I can't recommend it enough for a romance. But for everyone, if you like romance, this is perfectly up your street. And if you like romance but you don't love it, this is also up your street as well, because it will be one of those books that it's not all about the romance, because it's about the plan, and the romance kind of just bobs along and happens in the background. And I guarantee this story and these characters, they will get in your heart and you will just absolutely love it. But I hope to see more of them in future, because I just know their future is going to be good. So I do hope Miranda will bring us feature stories with Monica and Ray. But it was fantastic, and I can't recommend it enough. So I'll pop a link in the description so you can go and grab a copy of Accidental Honeymoon by Miranda Macleod, which I hope you will. If you've read Accidental Honeymoon, it would be great to hear your thoughts. Please comment below. Please let me know what you thought of the book. And if you haven't read it yet, but it's on your to be read list, you're planning to read it, or you're now really, really intrigued and thinking, I can't wait to read that, again, comment below, let us know, because it's always great to hear what you're reading. And if you do read it, I hope you love it. Bye.